Wow, good morning, everyone. Please be seated. Woo, I feel a bit shy, but I think I'll pick up as we go. First of all, I'd like to say a very big thank you to Pastor Mo for having me here. I've been a big fan of Hill's business. I watch these sessions online virtually. I just think it's very exciting what you're doing here, what you're doing, bringing people to just think about business from a different perspective. And it's a session that I followed. So when he said I should come and speak, I was only too glad and felt privileged to be here. I was a bit torn this morning coming in because, I'm wearing sneakers. I have fun day. My kids have like a fun day session after this thing. And I was like, it's Pastor Mo's thing. Pastor Mo is very, very, very formal. I don't know if I'm going to be, following the dress code. And just to share a little bit about, when I first met Pastor Mo, and I'll share as I, go into sort of the topic for today. I first met Pastor Mo many, many years ago, probably about 2002 or so. I met him in Lagos. I was about to go into a venture in Jos with some, mutual friends, and also that's how I met Pastor Mo. But I remember the first time I saw him, Pastor Mo was like in crisp white shirt, fitted, white pants, white shoes. Everything was like just in order. His car was sparkling clean. I was like, what kind of person is this? The kind of person that you meet that regulates you, just puts you, even if you are not like that, you just feel a bit of pressure to, to move. And he's been that person, he's been a big brother, and just in my life at key points, key losses, key wins, Pastor Mo just there. So Pastor Mo, I just want to say thank you. I honor and appreciate you. Thank you very much. All right, guys, there's a lot to cover. I have 30 minutes, and it's Bola, right? It's Bola. Bola told me that he's going to, let me know. So I need to manage my time very well, but there's so much that we need to cover in that short period. Where do I start? I don't have slides, so sorry, I thought I would just share. I have like one page of notes. And hopefully we'll cover all this page. I didn't want to do slides and make it a formal presentation because we're mining the deep. We're not in a conference, so to speak, right? So that's a bit of it. I woke up this morning with a song, which I'll just share briefly, and then I think it sets the context for everything that I'll share here this morning. I woke up this morning with this song, Everything, everything, Lord, you are everything to me, everything, everything, Lord, you are everything to me. You're my treasure, my priority. Lord, then compare with you. Great is the measure of your royalty, O morning star, you truly are everything. And truly, he is everything. And everything we do is in the context of the knowledge that is everything. And I love the context that Pastor Mosh set for mining the deep. Because there are so many business conferences, there are so many seminars. Nowadays, you'll be so tired of different places you're hopping to and fro, right? But when you see business within the context of your spirituality, within the context of serving God, within the context of loving God, it's just an expression. It's just one of many expressions, whether it's your business, it's your family, it's whatever you're doing. And that's why I'm so excited about today's topic. Mind the deep. We don't have to go deep, by the way. That's the beautiful thing about God. We actually don't have to go deep. God is so kind that he lets us choose the level we want to operate at. We actually don't have to go deep. The Bible says, I think in Matthew 5 or so, that he causes the rain to shine on the good and on the evil. God is a good God. And he allows us to operate at whatever level we want to operate in. If you don't want to go deep, you just want to do well, you just want to apply scriptural principles, it's okay, it's fine. But if you say you want to go deep, it's about consecration. It's about going deeper in God. So don't let this title of Mining the Deep confuse you. It's actually not a business conference. It's a consecration conversation. It's a consecration conversation of, God, I want to see your wonders in the deep. And then he now starts defining what that looks like for you. Do you understand? It's very different than I want to build a unicorn. You can do all that. That can be part of the brief. But the brief is not just about building the unicorn or anything. It's about, God, I'm going deeper with you. And I am your vessel. Let's go wherever you want me to go. And the example I will give, because people will say that, listen, because if you think that you are doing business just because of business, then you might have missed it. What I'm trying to say is that there was this article I read about how in Africa, we speak a lot about SMEs and so many, SMEs are the backbone, this and this and this and that. There's some statistics that show that majority of the SMEs in Africa and in Nigeria are necessity entrepreneurs. We're not very entrepreneurial. It's necessity. I don't have a job, I need to eat, so I need to hustle. So necessity entrepreneurship. If they had an option, if they had a job, they would be in a job. Then there are the people that are really entrepreneurs. That is, they want to build something. And we're not judging anyone. I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't have that skill set. Do you understand? So my point is that some people are doing it out of necessity, and some are doing it out of, I just have a calling to do this. And I think that's how we do business with God as well. You can come to God and say, listen, I know that God can help me do well. I know that God can help me blow, and it is okay. God will even help you blow. It's okay. It's not God. It's me that we are too judgmental and all. God will walk through you. He will bless you, and you will grow at that level. Or you can come to God and say, God, I want to see what you can do through me in this area, and he will do that. And the example I would like to give, because people get a lot of times that, why do you need God? People are doing things. There are so many very powerful people in business who are not Christians. In fact, they are even atheists. I think Mark Zuckerberg is one of them. So what's all this about? In the Bible where Moses was doing, when he went to release the children of Israel and all the rest, he was doing signs. He was doing signs and wonders. Pharaoh's guys too were doing signs and wonders. Do you guys remember? Yeah. We're all doing signs. So all of us are doing signs. So we're all doing exploits. But it is the spirit of the exploit that differs. And by the way, there's a spirit that is more superior than spirits. It's the Lord is the Father of spirits. Do you understand? That don't let anyone deceive you that you have to come to God to do well in business. Let me help you bust that myth. It is a lie. You will do well in business without God. You will do well in business by following certain principles, by working hard, but you will do some kind of exploit. Some kind of exploits require the Spirit. So I just like to set a little bit of a basic, just to put it in context. I'm going to tell you the 3 key points I want to share today. Then I'll go into them. The reason I'm telling you the 3 key points is because I might run out of time. So I'll tell you the 3 key points. Point 1, each level of depth is a higher level of consecration. It's a call to a higher level of consecration. Because ultimately, we're on a journey of becoming more like Christ. That is what God is doing with us. For some of us, he uses business. For some other people, he uses marriage. For some other people, he uses family. God will walk through anything to get you to become more like Christ, to get you to walk in the purpose that he has created you to be. So that's the first point, that if we say we are mining the deep, it's about going deeper in consecration. And this consecration matter, there are levels. And I'll share a few stories on that. 2 is mining the deep is going deeper in Christ, and that can only be done by the Spirit. We can only go deeper by the Spirit, right? The Bible talks about the inexhaustible riches of Christ. Do you understand? And there's this book, in Proverbs, it talks about how there's a lot of wisdom in the belly of a wise person, but it takes a wise person to draw it out. Questions. That tells you it is in the deep. It is in the deep. And you only go in the deep by the Spirit. The Bible talks about how we build up ourselves in our most holy faith, praying in the Spirit. It bubbles those things that are in the deep, and it comes out. I'll also share some examples when we get there. And then the 3rd point, which is, I think, the message that actually God wanted me to really share here this morning, is that we go to the deep as part of our function as kings. Pastor Mo spoke about having dominion and all of that. That we go to the deep as our function as kings, having dominion. My Egbon has just stepped in, Uncle T. Morning, sir. we go to the deep as in our function as kings, where he says, have dominion. And our ultimate responsibility is to be stewards of righteousness. If you don't remember anything else today, that you are a steward of righteousness. That's what kings do. They are stewards of righteousness. Okay? And I'll explain that also when I get there. So let's start with the consecration part, that each level of digging deep is about consecration. I'll share a little bit about sort of like my journey. I found God in a very interesting way as a child. I lost my elder brother. I was very, like a kid. My mom kept having girls, and I knew she wanted another boy. So at some point, I said, okay, you're pregnant now. You're going to have a boy. And I started praying with her. I didn't know what I was praying. I was maybe about 6 or 7. But then my mom had a boy, and I said, it's like when I pray, things happen in this family. They've been having girls. When I decided to pray, you see, you had a boy. And that was that. And then, so I found God early, kind of, just by knowing that he sort of existed. And then over time, I was like my mom's handbag. I'll follow her to church and so many different places. And growing up, I knew that I wanted to do business. I don't know why. Business is like a hobby to me. People have like cool hobbies. My own hobby is business. In fact, my other sister told me that, my sister told me that that whoever marries me is either because they would have spoken to me about God or business. That is one of those two platforms that I'll get married. And do you know, truly, my husband, I met him on a business transaction, and we connected because of our faith. So it was actually quite prophetic. But that was sort of my journey. So I didn't come in just thinking I was doing anything big for God. No, I was more of like, let's just, God is able to help you. You just pull that thing when you need him. And I started out, I started out my career at IBM. I did that. It was okay, but I felt like I needed more, so I went to grad school. While I was in grad school, I decided that I wanted to work with this company called McKinsey, because McKinsey, that's where people travel. They do a lot of business, and that's just what I want to do. It wasn't for any real value add. It's just travel and doing business deals, right? And I applied to McKinsey. They rejected me the first time. I applied the second time. They rejected me. And I remember, like, the third time I applied, I was in grad school. I was thinking I would do the job in the summer. I applied, and I got rejected. And I said, hey, what kind of thing is this? Okay, fine. I get the message. And that Sunday before my final rejection, I got there's this message. When you get a message in church and you're like, this is a problem. Sell it not. I'm like, what kind of message is this? Why are you telling me buy the truth and sell it not? True enough, a few days later, I got rejected. And I said, God, what are you saying? What are we actually doing? And I felt a leading to go to Jos. I'd met some people at the conference before. They were doing a startup in Jos. I said, fine, I'll go to Jos and go and see what was going on. So I went to Jos. The person that I worked for in Jos happened to have worked in McKinsey some years back or whatnot. By the time we were done, I spent about a year in Jos. That was also when I met Pastor Mo and all. He was like, you should work at McKinsey or you'll be good. I said, no, leave that McKinsey matter. They have rejected me too many times. At times you have to know when the game is up. I said, no, it's okay. I've healed from that. I've moved on. No. He said, you'll really be good. Long story, passes my CV on. And during that time, I remember going through the McKinsey process. By that time, I was disconnected. And just pass it on. They invited me for the first round. They said, you've moved to the second round. At that time, I had a jam that I was playing. I feel like God works with me a lot with music. And there was this song about God is Good by Israel Houghton and stuff. That was just like my track song. And so every time they call me, I say, I'll just play my jam. I say, God is good, but no big deal. I wasn't studying for the exam, nothing for the interviews. Second round, same experience. They called back. I said, the next round, I thought, it was all over. But even the interviewer I feel like the interviewer was even helping me, like telling me this and that. Anyway, I got to the final round. Final round, I then got on a flight to Atlanta. I was in California at the time, got on a flight, first class, stayed at a very nice hotel. When I got there, I said, I have to get this job. I have to. This job, I have to get it. What is this? Is this the kind of life I've been living? I must get it. So I got to the hotel room. I started bringing out I started printing out things to read because I have to get it. And I felt God asked me that, come. So round 1, round 2, round 3. You didn't read. Now that is the last stage. You have to take charge. I repented. I threw away all the papers. I ordered room service. I put on my jam, and I had a good time. Quickly fast forward. Next day, I had the interview. Before I left, they gave me the job. Now, when they gave me the job, I was just happy to get the job. It was when I got on a plane going back that I realized that the job they gave me was a level higher than I thought I was applying for. Now, the job I was applying when I kept getting rejected, that I went to Jos and I met this friend and all the rest that referred me, was like, if I'd gotten that job, it would have taken me 4 years to get what I got in a 1 year, 1.5, let's say 1.5 time frame. But what I realized was that when I got into McKinsey is a great place. I love McKinsey. In case this is online, I truly do. I learned so much from working at McKinsey. But McKinsey can also be an environment that if you are not prepared, you will be under so much pressure. You know, it's often called a place whereby smart people come and start feeling insecure. Do you understand? You will be under so much pressure. I have so many friends, extremely intelligent, who left broken. Do you understand? And I realized that what God did for me was that if I'd gotten that job in 2002, when I would have broken. When I got to McKinsey, I was so free. I was so free because I didn't even know how I got here. Do you understand? So what's the worst? They'll tell me to go. Truly, it wasn't like I was free because God got me there. He opened the door. Fast forward on. I'm talking about consecration, and I'm going to tell you how God now then comes for returns on his investment. So we did that. Everything was fine. Then they said, oh, there was an opportunity. I don't know. Nigeria was just something, a burden in my heart. In fact, when I came to Jos, it was because of Nigeria. The company went belly up. Pastor Mo knows this story. I said, God, I'm leaving Nigeria from you. I'm going back to the US, and I'm going to be cool there. Started working at McKinsey. After a few years, I'm like, I want to go back. This Nigeria is calling me. I want to go to Nigeria. So myself and this friend that referred me, we came back to Nigeria to help set up McKinsey's office here. In the midst of doing all of that or planning to do that, he got a job offer with First Bank by the new MD that had just been appointed at that time. So I said, listen, you have to take that job. I'll be your consultant. You go. And, you'll be sending me jobs this way. We work together. So he now said, no, but he wants someone else to drive transformation, long story. Anyway, he asked me, I said, I'll go and see him and see if my friend can work with him. Because me, I'm staying in McKinsey. I'm focused. For the first time in my life, I'm focused. But I went to see this MD. And within 2 minutes, you know how at times you go to church and they do altar call? That's how I felt. I just knew, I was like, I have to work with this man. I have to work with this man. And why? I just felt like this was someone who was very bold, someone who was, and maybe because of this burden, and this is where I'm going to, about purpose, that this is someone who can drive change. If I'm truly interested in driving change, where would I get better experience than this kind of, a bit, a very special guy. I said we might not succeed, but And so everyone told me, how can you leave McKinsey, about to make partner? You'll be the first Nigerian female partner, which eventually I ended up being anyway. Not that it mattered, right? But I said, I want to. They said, this man anything can happen to him. I said, what, are you planning for something for him? I joined First Bank. 1 month after, he called us and said, the president said he wants to make me the CBN governor. I said, wow. I said, are you going to? He said, if it's you, will you take it? I said, yes. He said, okay. So in 1 month, he was leaving. But I felt like God sent me to First Bank for a reason. I learned so many technical skills in McKinsey, but I learned about life and character development at First Bank. I learned, McKinsey taught me technical skills, no doubt. But life, realities, character, resilience, I learned it at First Bank. I got into First Bank. At first, it was all fun and games. We're doing transformation, my little project teams, and all the rest. Then, unrequested, I was asked to come and lead operations. Like, I'm not a banker. I'm a consultant. I can do advisory. But operations, that's real banking. I don't know what they know in the branch. Plus, all of the people that will be reporting to me are older than me. They're my dad's age. How can I function? At least my own team was, small, yuppie, all of that. So, but that experience of leading operations in First Bank was when God taught me so much. Because guess what? I was not qualified of myself. That consulting one, I could map. Operations, no. I felt like they gave me a size 10 shoe, and I was size 2. And I'm not being religious. Please get me. The things I know I can do, I know, oh, yes, I can. That advisory one, consulting one, I can do. God is helping us here, but we can do it. These operation ones I knew. When I was announced as the head of operations, I told when he first called me, my boss said, I want to make you head of. He said, who can we make head of operations? I started giving him names. He said, what about you? I said, no, that's not my thing. It's not possible, blah, blah, blah. I went home that night. I was just gisting with my mom. My mom and I are very close. I was just gisting with my mom. She said, what if God wants you to do it? I said, for where? I said, don't come with all those long stories. Oh. And we hung up, and that was it. And I felt God speak to me and say, what if I want you to do it? And I said, God, if you want me, let him call me back tomorrow morning. And I will know that, okay, you want me to do it. 7 a.m. My boss has never called me at that kind of time before. 7 a.m. the next morning, the phone rang, and he called me and said, that thing I spoke to you about, I really want you to do it. So go and think about it. That kind of go and think about it that is not thinking. He said, go and think about it, but I really want you to do it. And I got off the phone, and I knew that, okay, God, you are going with me. Oh. And so I said yes. When the announcement was made, I was doing I was running some sessions outside the office. I didn't go to the office for like a week and a half. Not because I couldn't go. I used the conference as an excuse. Why didn't I go to the office? I felt like a fraud. Do you understand? How was I going to go to the office? So I didn't. I said, no, we're running a conference and all the rest and all. And then I learned about kingship and kingdom. I had to grow up. I joined First Bank at 28. By this time, this was 2013 or 2012, 2013. I was about like 30, 31. No, by 2013, I was about 32, thereabouts, right? So I was like, I just want to do my work, do good work, and be cool. This one is now in. And part of that role was that you had to, change the team. You needed to, fire people. I felt at some point you feel like you're doing people's dirty job. But I learned that you can do a dirty job with a kingdom mindset. You can go on an errand as a king, or you can go on an errand as a servant. It's the mindset that you use. You can do dirty jobs with a king's mindset. But anyway, I told God, I said, God, I felt like I was like Solomon. I said, God, you have to help me in this job. If you don't help me, I am finished. And so that's how I started. I had to first restructure the team and all the rest. And I just realized that, okay, I told my boss, okay, these people have to go. But they have to go under good conditions. I did not start this problem. I cannot finish it. Do you understand? So we can't say that these people have to go overnight because the new person is coming, then they now go. They've tried. Maybe they are no longer fit for purpose, for where the bank is going, but we will do them well. So that was a negotiation. We will send them off and do it well. And so anyway, there was that whole process. I'll give one example so that I'll move because I'm sure my friend, my time is going. I'll give one example quickly. There was a situation when I was in First Bank, and during that time in First Bank, I also met a spiritual mentor who really helped me understand, you are not here on this platform just to be here. You are here to drive justice. You are here to drive. And there was a situation that happened where women were getting harassed in one of our locations. Totally harassed. By somebody who was relatively senior. And the sad thing is that person was also supposedly a kingdom person, and that person was perceived to be very close to me, perceived. And so people were not telling me because, what is she going to do? That's her friend and all the rest. And this person was harassing family women and all the rest. And so I said, what do I do? Because if I take this thing and this is what I'm talking about, mining the deep, God is in business. He gives you solutions. He gives you wisdom. He gives you understanding. I said, what do I do? Because if I just go to our exco and say this person is doing, you look like a child, you're not fit for the games we are playing here. It's different Game of Thrones, not, that this person is harassing and all the rest. And God gave me the idea. He said, do a reshuffling. Reshuffle. If you send this person to a certain region in the north, they can't try it there. If they go there, they cannot try it. If not, they will resign or they will conform. So he said, do realignment and stuff. So there's a good reason and there's a real reason. So I went to our exco and said, we need to reshuffle people. We need energy in the different locations. We need to boost, to drive our service delivery. And this is the proposal. And they said, oh, this is good. This is great. This is wonderful. And so they approved it. And he resigned. But see, this is what I'm talking about, mining in the deep. God is able to give us practical solutions, practical strategies. And there are so many different examples. I'm out of time. I'm going to be out of time soon, and I want to get to the other topics. But I've seen God do that. I've seen God tell me, okay, this is, time for you to step away. When I left First Bank, he said, go and sit at home. I said, what is that? Why do I go and sit at home? To do what? Just like that. In fact, by the time I left First Bank, I was tired of First Bank, to be honest with you guys. So I was looking for a job, and God called me and said, so you brought yourself to First Bank, and so now you're a big girl, you can leave. I said, sorry. I stopped interviewing. But guess what? The 2 companies I was interviewing with, a few months later, those companies shut down. And these were big companies. I don't want to mention their name. These were like big companies. I mean, like that one had thrown me to Dubai. I said, hey, these people are respecting me. Not like what's happening at First Bank. God said, you're a big girl now. You search for your own jobs, no problem. And that was it. And then after that, he said, go and sit at home for a few months. I said, what kind of thing? What do I even tell people? And that happened. At different points in time in my career, I've had sabbaticals that are not sabbaticals for myself. It's not me that had the idea that I would just want. God says, do this. And where am I going? You can have a career or a business that is yours, or you can have one that is inherited. The Bible talks about how a man that finds a wife finds a good thing and receives favor from the Lord. That means that you don't have to even be too deep. You don't even have to do prayer and fasting. If you find a wife, you have found a good thing, and you can claim. And then there's another verse that says that houses and riches are from fathers and all, but a good wife is from the Lord. That's a wife of covenant. That's a wife that is inherited. That's a wife that comes with terms and conditions. In the same vein, in your career, in your business, the Bible says that I've given you the power in Deuteronomy to get wealth. That means you can say that I have power to get wealth. It's a promise. But there's a verse in Proverbs 8:21 that says that he causes those who love him. He fills them with treasures and riches. That is covenant. That's covenant. And the point I'm trying to make here is that when you are on covenant, your life is not your own. You become a living sacrifice. The job you do is not your own. The time you go to that job, the time you resign is not yours, right? And that God has a template for each of us where he panel beats us more and more into his image, depending on our own format, because it's not that it's generic. God knows the things that are worrying you and that he needs to adjust before he takes you to his next level of purpose for whatever he's trying to drive in your life. I'll give one last example on that. In 2022, I lost my sister. That was like the most tragic thing in my life. You know, it was devastating on many dimensions. And I don't know, Pastor Mo said something here about, maybe I can't connect it. I was just going to say that I like to just see God's wonders. I don't want to see like things in Job and stuff. You know, those are not the kind of books I like to read. Why suffer? Why? I just want to be talking about blessings. But when my sister died, the book of Job was my greatest solace. And I started to get a different and a new or a better perspective of God. And through that journey, you know, I stopped work. I didn't even have time to give notice. I just stopped. I couldn't function. But I knew that God was true. There was a video that my husband shared with me that Pastor Chintok shared just recently. You might have seen it online. That if you are in love with someone and someone is like your lover, and, you know, they tell you they have some surprise and everything, and they cover your face and say, come, that you will come. And I realized that is so true. Because with my sister's death, the most painful thing, but I know that God is true. And I learned, and I'm learning how to live with unreconciled things. Unreconciled things. I'm not in a rush to put God in a box. Oh, God said it was time for her to go home. Who said? Because I can't explain it. I said God's will is the best. It's time for her to go. It's a lie. It's your limit, the limitation of your explanation. And you shouldn't be in a rush. If you don't, I still don't understand yet. With time, I'm sure he will share me. Or maybe when I get to heaven, I will know. But I realized what I learned from that experience is trust. Like, God, I trust you. I may not understand, but I trust you. And that Pastor Chintok's video captured it so perfectly that I can't see, but I know in whom I have trusted, right? And during that season, God called me on another sabbatical. This one was first anyway because I wasn't going to work. And then I felt like, okay, it's time for me to go back to work. And I felt like God said, your time at McKinsey is up. I said, how? Would I just leave McKinsey without no agenda, not knowing where to go and all the rest? Anyway, I eventually left. And then the first few months, you know, you finish, you say, okay, I can do a few things, you know, I can consult, you know. And you try and do a few things and nothing seems to be happening. And you're like, God, what is going on? And I remember it was like last year, March. I went to one church, like I go to Joshuaville. I went to church that month. I was like, God, I don't even know what you're doing with my life. And God said, you don't know what I'm doing in your life. Because I felt like I was just at home. Things were not moving like it should be moving. Do you understand? And the kind of issues you get at home, when you're just at home, some women can relate. Some cook will tell you that we're out of this. Well, you're like, is this the issues that I'm now dealing? These are the big issues that I'm now dealing with. So I just was like, and I felt God was saying that, what is it to you, what I've called you to do per time? If you are truly the clay and I'm the potter, what is it to you? Because maybe you have a vision of how you should be spending your time. And I never felt that I was the kind of person that, like, I don't think so, that I carry, like, what I'm doing on my sleeve or whatever. But God was seeing something in me that I want to change your identity. I want you to be truly so secure that your identity is the daughter of the king. That's the only identity, not mother, not wife, not whether partner of McKinsey. Like, I want it, not that the one you say is the one you truly believe. He said, I'm working on that identity. I didn't understand it then. And so that Sunday, I said, okay, God, whatever you want to do. If you want me to sit at home and be monitoring, I have 2 young daughters. If you want me to sit at home, I'll be monitoring them and monitoring inventory level of groceries. No, voila, we would do it. And that was that. So guess what? That was end of March or sometime in March. By May, all sorts of doors started opening. All sorts of doors started opening. I mean, I can't really maybe share all of them here. All sorts of doors, unsolicited. Unsolicited. It was like God was commanding things to me. You know how he said, I've commanded a raven to feed you. God was commanding things to feed me. And then I felt like what God was telling me was that before you exchange time for money. In this season, it's not about exchanging time. I have commanded people to resource you, but you are doing my projects. Do you understand? Because time is the currency that we have. You are doing my projects, but how you are resourced, I will bring things your way, don't worry. So don't get confused with what might be coming your way, And out of the blue, I was appointed on a board that I have no idea. Well, I have an idea now. I know that God placed me there because how I got on that board, I cannot tell you. Do you understand? And during the process, I felt God told me, do not reach out to anybody, including the recruiter. And I'm not saying this as I don't believe in rules and all these things, because God deals with each of us. And he knows what is the thing in us that he's adapting. So our stories are different. So I don't believe in rules. But I felt like in my own instance, God told me, don't even call the recruiter to say, you called me about this some time ago. I haven't heard from you. 4 months, I haven't heard from you. No. Again, to show that he can do and he cannot do. Mr. Bala, I still have a few. Okay, I still have a few. Okay, let me quickly touch on it. So that's just the first one about consecration. The point I'm trying to make is that when you are working with God, he takes you to deeper levels. He takes you to deeper levels. There was a time in First Bank where I faced some kind of persecution I didn't understand. I'm just here trying to get work done. I don't have any agenda. I don't have any ambition, but God was working on me. He was working on my personality. He was working on areas of myself that I wasn't even aware of. So that's the first point. The second point is about the inexhaustible riches, about by the Spirit. I think that in this season, wisdom will be the stability of our times. In a world whereby everybody knows so much, and there's so much information, ChatGPT, all of us look the same. But there's a spirit in man that gives understanding. One of the things I've been praying is in Daniel 5, and I recommend that you take it if you're in the business space or you want to do things in business, where Daniel was sought for. Why? Not because Daniel, and by the way, it's not, this thing about the spirit and all, it doesn't mean that we're lazy people, doesn't mean that we don't study, doesn't mean that we don't work, that we're not diligent. No, we don't make excuses. We do that bit, but we know that that's not what is driving us, right? Daniel was sought out not because he understood by the books of Babylon or all the books or whatever. The king's mother said that there's a man in your kingdom that has the Spirit of God in him. And in other words, she was saying, call for Daniel and he will solve your problem. He will give you an answer of peace. He will give you a solution. And I feel that God is saying that to us in this season, that I have a timeline. I have things that I want to do. And I'm going to empower you with the spirit of wisdom for solutions, for creativity, not just for yourself, not just to say that you've blown, it's for his agenda. Which is why I'm going to move quickly to my last point. I don't want Bola to give me the sign. I want to be a good speaker and close at least 1 minute before, right? The third point is about stewards of righteousness. right? In the book of Proverbs, the king's mother is talking to her son and giving him guidance. It is not good, O Lemuel, for kings to drink and this and that. And it's not about just drinking wine, because at times we read the Bible and we miss it. It's not about whether you're drinking wine or not. But it's what she said after that. It's not good for kings to drink wine so that they do not pervert justice. In other words, the purpose of a king is justice. The Bible talks about how, a nation is exalted by righteousness. Where there's no justice, you cannot have stability, you cannot have, and that's part of what Nigeria's problem is. And so you ask yourself that, how are we in a country whereby there's so much churches, there's so much spirituality, and righteousness is not yet embedded? And that is where the concept of stewards of righteousness comes in. And especially in business, because through business we impact so many lives, right? So stewards of righteousness is about fairness in your policies. It's about treating people right. It's about the issues we hear about promotion and how people got cheated and didn't, It's about customer service, doing things because it's right. It's about fair pricing. It's about adding value. It's about, righteousness is not that deep. And righteousness is not about Abuja. It's about here. It's about us. It's about how we govern things in our space. It's about how you called a plumber to come and fix something in your house and nothing was fixed. And you don't think that you should give him money for transport. Because in a civilized environment, just to come to your house and assess, I'll charge you. So do you know what that plumber does? He must find something to break in your house. Because if not, it's an unprofitable transaction. That's righteousness. To say, no, this is not balanced. This equation is not balanced. How do we balance it? Righteousness is looking and saying, okay, you know what? All my staff, there are, transport issues or whatever happened to us with this Independence Bridge saga. And saying, what is proper? I think when we start embedding righteousness in practical ways, not about church, not about, people will flock. People will want to know more about this God and this kingdom. And I feel like that is why God is empowering us in the business space now. Thank you so much. I pray that God will speak to us. I pray that he will empower our hands in this season. And I pray that he will fill us truly with the spirit of wisdom that will differentiate us in all that we do. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Topsy. Another round of applause for Topsy, please. Thank you so much. That was truly amazing. So many pearls of wisdom in just that short amount of time. In that period, you talked about this as being a consecration conversation. And it really is. Like when you're doing business and you're going deeper into Christ, it's about consecrating yourself. You talked about, I'm going to use my own words in terms of how you talked about it, but you talked about how you had almost imposter syndrome. You weren't sure why you were there, but God has a reason for you to be in the season that you're in at all times. You talked about being a steward of righteousness, and you talked about kingship and doing the right thing. When you're in business, sometimes we think about getting rich quick. Sometimes we think about doing things, taking shortcuts, and not seeking God's counsel beforehand. Seeking God's counsel like David did. In everything that he did, he would seek God's counsel first. And so being a steward of righteousness, about doing the right thing. Thank you so much. These are great reminders for people in terms of your work, in terms of your business, in terms of your life. And I'll remember to make sure I give plumbers transport every time these days. We have a few minutes or a couple of minutes for questions. If anybody has a question, they can raise their hands and a mic will come to you. While you guys are thinking of your questions, I have maybe one question that would start us off. And what I would like to ask is, in those moments when you were waiting, how did you ensure that your faith wasn't shaken? I'll bring the mic over. Okay.
Thank you. In those moments of waiting, how do you ensure your faith shakes? So that's why I told you now that I went to church that Sunday and said, God, what are you really doing with me? Because I don't understand. What is happening in this season? What's the plan? right? So your faith shakes, but then you also have moments. Like that Sunday, for me, worship is such a big thing. Like I go to church, even before the word, and that's why I really love, where I fellowship. Just when you're in the presence of God in worship, it's like you are right before the King, and conversations happen. So that Sunday, I was encouraged in worship, and I felt God was speaking to me that, are you asking me what I'm doing with you? What is it to you? And I calmed down, and I relaxed, right? So I guess what I do in seasons of waiting, for me, is just encouraging yourself in the Lord through worship, right? Through worship. At times, God sends someone that gives you an encouraging word and all. But the truth is that our faith, well, I don't know about anybody else's. My own faith shakes, but we thank God for strength.
No, please stay up. Yeah, if you please stay up. I think that'll be easier. Do we have any hands up for questions? We've got one there.
Morning. Thank you so much for your message. Okay, for me, I'm a fashion designer, and over the years, I do everything my way, my knowledge. I just pretty much use my head to do everything. And yes, the business has grown to an extent, but it's not where I really want it to be. But now, I kind of made up my mind, December/January, that this time around, I actually want to do every little detail with God. Even as little as, should I launch a new collection or not? What designs do you want me to launch? But I feel like I don't hear. Every time I ask God about that, instead I hear other aspects of my life. So could it be that I should just go ahead and do what I know? Because I feel like I already have what I want to do in my mind, but I'm just waiting for God to give me, a go ahead. Or could it be that I'm not hungry or thirsting enough? That's my question. Thank you.
Wow, that's a loaded one. No, it is. It's a loaded one, and I will not stand here to say that I have the answer. I'll just share a thought or some thoughts with you, right? I feel like there are times when we ask God and we really don't know, and we're not really sure what He's saying, right? And maybe at some times there's some deadline or timeline, and we just need to take action, and we take action based on what we think is best per time. I think there's something also about trust. That God is not like a taskmaster. God is not waiting to see where we are going to miss Him and knock us up, right? Do you understand? So we've asked, we've prayed, we're still not sure. Action needs to be taken. Lord, I'm going in this direction. I mean, I've dated someone before because I thought it was God's will, and it was not. Do you understand? I didn't want to date the person, but I just felt, do you understand? But the point I'm trying to make is that at times we move, right? Truly believing that, well, based on what I know and all the rest, but God is faithful. God is able to shape you back. So I think in your scenario, you've opened up to God and said, okay, God, I've been doing this thing by myself. Oh. This year we are doing it together. Oh. Which way? And you feel like you're not hearing. Make a move. Do you understand? Make a move and say, Holy Spirit, and guide me.